So good evening, and it's great to be back. As always, had a great time last week with Proverbs, and we're back again for another go round. I'm looking at my Bible here. I'm looking at Corinthians. Obviously, I'm in the wrong place, so I need to get moved over. We are in Proverbs. What? 22. At least that's what I have. How about you guys? Is that about right?
That's what I had.
All right. I love it when a plan comes together. Name that show, where that's the catch line on the show. Anybody? That was way back in the day. That was the A Team. The guy always said when they finished it up, he said, "I love it when a plan comes together." So, all right, 22. Really are continuing with the same theme that we had in 21. Is we all know that the process of these are basically couplets. They're repeats. We've picked out last time where we had um, uh, early in the chapter we had a statement, and then later in the chapter you have the same statement in a different way. So it keeps coming back around. And I think we all agreed when we were looking at this last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? This was 2 weeks ago. Uh, that it's really intentional to do that. That he's driving the point home and saying it in different ways. Like Jesus did the same thing, right? It's a method of teaching to say the same thing using different metaphors, different similes, different stories. I use it this time, I do it with a vineyard. Next time I do it with fish. And the next time I do it with wheat and grain. So, and an agrarian world. So here it's just saying the same thing over and over again, but it's that coming back to it and saying it same thing in different ways is a normal process of teaching. So, who would like to start us off with 22? And 22 is not that long. So let's just go from 22 to 22:10. Who would like to read?
I'll read
You
it.
read it.
Choose a good reputation over great riches. Being held in high esteem is better than silver or gold. The rich and poor have this in common. The Lord made them both. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. True humility and fear of the Lord lead to riches, honor, and long life. Corrupt people walk a thorny, treacherous road. Whoever values life will avoid it. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the leader. Those who plant injustice will harvest disaster, and their reign of terror will come to an end. Blessed are those who are generous, because they feed the poor. Throw out the mocker and two. Quarrels and insults will disappear. Was
All
that
right. That's it. So
as far as
anyone
you
else?
wanted?
Yep.
Yeah,
That was 10.
that was 10. Anybody have one that stands out to you? Something that caught you up?
I noticed for mine, the wording in number 9 was different for me. And mine says, "The kindly man will be blessed, for he gives of his sustenance to the poor." So what stood out for me was that he gave of his own sustenance,
Mm-hmm.
not just,
You
it wasn't just that he was working to, give whatever was there, but he gave of himself.
Yeah. 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 And of course, all these, that whenever we read these, sometimes it's a very plain one for one, like, pick up the plate and put it on the table. So we think that's a very specific image and it's very easy. Pick up the plate and put it on the table. But remember that all of these images, while they have a direct one for one, pick up the plate and put it on the table, there's also a deeper image that you can get from it as you look at it or as you reflect on it. So I think what you're saying, I like your translation better, sustenance instead of just sharing food. Gives of his sustenance. I like that because that lends itself more to the idea of a greater participation for him in what he's doing. It's a life thing. It's not just something he's just handing off half his hamburger. It's more of a thing. Okay, let's see.
I like 6. I like number 6. Of course, that one's very familiar.
Yes, train a child in the way he should go or she should go, and when he or she is old, they will not turn from it. Now, how old?
Direct them onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it.
Yours says older. What does yours say, Sue?
Old.
Old.
Well,
How about you, Gail?
Old.
Old. Okay.
And when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Yep. So how old?
older makes more sense to me than old.
Older. Okay. How much older?
Grown.
Grown. So
Yeah, like 18
all?
or so, 18,
Okay.
21, something like that. Old.
All right. Then
So-
is that true?
Not always.
No. No, it's not. I don't
Definitely not always.
yeah. When I first read this years ago, I thought of that too. In fact, years ago, I didn't have an 18-year-old child, so I looked at this, read this, and I thought, oh yeah, this is true. When your kids get older, and that's what we're talking about. I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think that's true at all. The the there's a lot that your kids can do that is bewildering to parents and inexplicable. I've talked to so many parents in my time where they've come in and said, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
I didn't raise them this way. This is not us. We're not doing this. And, what the hey, what happened? And it's inexplicable. There's no answer to it. I heard this a lot when I was a chaplain in the prison, and I would talk to these guys, and a lot of times they would, prior to getting out, they'd be within a year or 2 years and thinking they were going to get out, or they were getting out. They knew they were, and they would be talking about how since they were in prison, they never heard again from their mother or their father,
Hmm.
and they're not sure if they should go and look them up and go home or not, where the parents were either ashamed or whatever, and had no contact with them. So what I found in that is that the boy who became the man, who did terrible things and wound up in prison and was there for a long time, returned, as it says right here.
Yeah. So you think old is the right
Yeah,
stage?
I think it could be even refined to say genuinely mature, because people can be mature and but genuinely mature is somebody who has an active process of introspection. Who am I is not just a question for my biographer. It's who am I in this room with these people? Who am I in this place with this person? Who am I right now by myself? And it's a question we should ask ourselves all the time, because I think if you do, we find out that we're different people.
Mhm.
And the question is, should we be, and do we want to be? And I think the answer is yes, a no and no. I don't think we should be, and I don't think we want to be. I think that we are the person with the people who we know the people or we think the people will like. And we're the person with the other person that we believe that person will like. And then when we're by ourselves, we're a different person again. And I've talked to people too who have a completely different alone life than they do a social life. It's like when they're a social person, they're like the social butterfly. They're like, woohoo, they're everywhere. And they're out and they're gregarious, and it's really, partying and great. And then they get by themselves and they don't go anywhere and they don't do anything and they stay at home. I talked to one man who said, I was at home for a week, I didn't do anything. What's wrong with me? I said, I don't know. What's wrong with you? And he goes, well, I'm always out. I mean, I work and I go to parties. My wife and I go to parties, other stuff. And she went away to see her mother-in-law. I'm my mother-in-law. And I had all these things planned. I had my, doing stuff. And I just didn't do anything. I just stayed home and I puttered and did stuff. And I didn't feel, I wasn't depressed or anything. I wasn't mad. I just stayed home. I want to make sure, am I okay? Like, so, I think that you're probably getting closer to who you really are. And the life that you live as going out is the person that you enjoy those things and you want to be that person. And maybe you have relationships you want to keep going, but maybe as you're getting older, you're becoming more of the person who stays at home. And you need to keep asking yourself the question, who am I? And see who you really are, who you turn out to be. When we're the person we're really meant to be, imagine how much less stress you'd be under. It's a huge amount of stress. Think of how hard it is in your life to be this person for this person and this person for those people and that person for those people. Ugh, it's untenable, really. It's exhausting. So how
I
much
think
better? Hmm?
I think you can enjoy being both.
Yes, yes, as long as you know it. As you know it, you're
But he
comfortable.
didn't. He didn't. Yeah.
No, no, he didn't. He was really no Bishop Lee. Bishop Lee was a very outgoing guy. And we went to see parishes and he went to the retreats and would go around and talk to everybody and he was all at it. And I knew him for years and years and years. And he did this. And one year I went to the clergy retreat in the winter and I decided I was going to stay on for another day. So everybody left. And um, it was just me and it snowed. It was so beautiful. I was sitting on the porch at Shrine Mount in the snow. And I looked up and this man was walking down the road from the up top. I was down in one of the lower cabins and had his coat on, his hat and everything, and came down, went to the chow hall. And I went in to get food when it was time. And it was Bishop Lee. He was up there staying in his cabin in his house up there. And he said he comes and does that every now and then to recharge. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, um, I'm a real introvert. I really I don't like being with people like very much.
Wow.
Like, but you're out, and after we had that conversation, I used to watch him really for the years to come, and I did see it when I heard him say that. I saw it from then on. It just wore him out.
Mm.
It just wore him out. I could see that as the night went on, the struggle that he had to keep doing what he was doing. It was not him. So. Yeah, knowing who we are, these people that are in trouble, the woman that's in trouble in prison, jail, or whatever their life, when they get older, and all this stuff of doing all this stuff for other people and being the person we think we're supposed to be, living up to what other image we've chosen in our life, well, none of that matters anymore. And for many people, this doesn't happen ever, right? But a lot of people it happens, but it happens when we're in their 90s or something, 80s, and there's not much time left. And you're realizing at this point, I don't have to be any, I don't need to be anything for anybody anymore. I can just be me. So you become you. For people in prison, this happens a lot sooner.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do there really, but think and pray and talk. That's why you have so many people going to prison and coming out as Christians, people of faith, because they've finally get into their own head and their own heart and realize that they have done horrible things and they're terrible people, and it doesn't make sense without the motivation of being out there with that people, the gang or whatever it was pushing them on, and they can't live with it, and so they start looking for some place to find peace, and really what they need is forgiveness. And when they receive forgiveness, they begin to be a person who's forgiven, and they start learning who they really are. And time after time after time, I heard men say, I was raised a Christian, but when I left the house, man, it all went out of the window. I didn't even think about that till I was in here for 10 years. And now I found Jesus and I'm never going back. I know I'm sorry I lost all these years of my life, but terrible things I did and people I hurt, but I know it now. I know it now, and I'm living.
Do
In
they
fact,
generally have good ministers and priests in prisons to
mhm.
instigate this change?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Virginia Chaplain Services, they'll have exceptional chaplains. I went in at a lot of prisons and spent time there, and enjoyed it very much talking with men and women in the women's prison. But it takes a special person to be a prison chaplain all the time. And if you don't have that call, you cannot do it. That's just one of the things you you can't. So these people, men and women that were chaplains, that's what they lived and breathed. It brought them joy, and they were excited about going, and that's a true gift. So they're good chaplains. They are really there for God and for the inmates, and to preach the gospel and help people find it. And they do. People do find it. Really, they do. That's why it's sad when you hear that some of this person did some horrible thing, and 25 years later he's getting out and it gets on the news or something, and people are saying he should never get out. He should stay in prison and rot for the rest of his life, and he's a terrible person. How can he get out? Blah, blah, blah. And these are Christians. These are Christian people who saying this stuff. But they're not giving any credence to God's ability to change people, to open their mind and their heart to who they were, and in that place to be healed. Who's the last person that Jesus healed?
You mean
Thief.
The thief. Yeah. From his at the just moment before he died, he
Yeah.
healed the guilty man next to him. So the man who said, "We have really done the bad things and we should be up here," and Jesus forgave him. So when we hear people getting out and we hear their story, it's time when Christians should be praising God and giving thanks that this person is getting out. It's not the person who went in. And we're not hating the person. We're hating the terrible things the person did, and maybe the horror of the life that the person had before. What kind of life did they have that produced that terrible person? So,
well, maybe they weren't directed by their parents too,
oh, absolutely.
as it says here.
Yep.
To do.
Yep. No parent, no parental guidance. That was a staple. That was a common thing. Usually, really, no father. No father. Well, a lot of no discipline, no example, nobody to say no and try to give a direction, nothing like that. So, young people think about inner city, not just inner city, but it happens more there. Without a father, where do you go? You go to your friends, and your friends are on the street, and they don't have fathers either. And so you've got the worst possible situation influencing the worst possible situation, and there's no wonder it just spirals down the drain. All of the what's important and all of the goals and aspirations are all completely corrupted. And what do you do with that? Well, they live into it. And you hear in the inner cities, you hear people that I heard a counselor on the radio who said he's counseling in the inner city a place. He said, I'm an anomaly. All of my friends, everybody died before they were 21. And I was going to die. I couldn't believe it. Something was wrong with me because I kept living. And pretty soon I was too old. I had to get out of the gang. I had to get away from them because even though I was a part of everything they were doing and I was as bad as everybody else was, I just couldn't get killed. And they started thinking I was taking it easy and I was a slacker, and they weren't happy with me, so I had to leave. And he said, now I know what it was. I know what it is. As God saved me from that life so I could save somebody else. So it was a wonderful story, and he's a great guy. So I don't know where he is now, but I used to hear about him now and then. I'd look for him on the radio. So, all right, let's.
Too much freedom. Too much freedom does, I think, encourage that kind of behavior and no direction.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Lord of the Flies. Great book. Oh my gosh, what a story. Okay, let's see. Number 4, humility and fear of the Lord brings health, wealth, and honor and honor in life. So this is one of the ones I think that has the double meaning. Certainly, if this is Solomon who's writing this, he can say wealth and honor in life, because boy, he had that in spades, didn't he? But he's giving this word off to somebody who's a tanner, or a tent maker, or a fisherman, or a potter. or an old person who doesn't do anything anymore because they can't. They're injured, they're hurt, they're depending on their family to take care of them. So in that case, it's the wealth, honor, and life is talking about spiritual life. If you're turning to God, the value, what do I value most greatly in my life? What's the most important wealth I can have? It's the Lord. It's the time with God. It's the reality. What's the honor that I have? It's the realizing that God made me and loves me and wants me, takes care of me. What an honor it is to know the love of God and have that be real. And that brings what? That brings life, true life, not the fake life, the true life. So this is one of the great times where, yeah, maybe you are rich, not like Joel Osteen and those guys.
Ugh.
Uh, oh my gosh, I just watched a little thing about them. It's so depressing. But you know, you're well off. But as Christians that are well off, I know of several Christians that are really well off, and they really use their advantages to help people. They really spend money, give to the church, and try to support ministries and do stuff. It's not just incidental. It's like the focus of their wealth, and they give thanks to God and they say, God did this for me. So it can be that and the other.
Mine's quirky, I think. So
Mhm.
I'd be interested to know how your number 4 is phrased, because mine says true humility and fear of the Lord lead
Mhm.
to riches, honor, and long life. And
Yeah,
that doesn't sound quite right.
yeah.
The
Mine
rich
just says
part.
mine just says bring wealth and honor and life. And I was
Well,
actually going to look up the Hebrew, and I did not do it before, so maybe I can do it here.
humility and fear of the Lord.
Let's see if I can punch this up. Where's my Hebrew?
Fear of the Lord always throws me too.
Yeah. Well, remember I said that's the primer for Proverbs, it's fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So in the
okay.
shack, there wasn't a lot of fear of the Lord.
No, he did not show that at the beginning at all. It just was um anger. Anger and judgment. Remember, he was judging God, not the other way around. At least he didn't think so. Let's see. 4. Instruction. Oh, 22. Maybe it'd be helpful if I get to 22, wouldn't it? All right, there we go. 22. All right, 22. We got have in common humility, punished, prudent man. There we go. Prudent man, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Prudent man, humility, punished, life and honor. Past but simple, suffered. Rich, pass on. Okay. A prudent man, punished, and by humility, fear the riches of Yahweh in life. Humility again. Diverse snares. Honor, riches. Let's see what riches of Yahweh. Oh, okay. Well, that's different too. Yeah, so this one actually says receives life, honor, and riches of Yahweh. So that's the riches of God.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
not referencing any kind of wealth. Life and honor and the riches of God. And that's in that order. So they
It says
really
long life.
it says life,
Yeah. Does it
life,
say
life,
long or just life?
just life.
Oh,
Life and honor and the riches of Yahweh.
life.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think that all those things, life and honor and riches of Yahweh, are all within the context of Yahweh. I think that that's the foundation of that.
Could
So
long
yeah,
life mean in heaven?
I don't know why they would add that long in there, except for to make, encourage people. You
I mean,
can
it
do
kind of
it.
goes against the old saying, only the good die young.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a curiosity when we find these where they've changed the translation so much you lose. Like, well, how come humility and fear? Okay, I said yeah, humility and fear of the Lord. So that's where the Yahweh comes in. So they're using the word your Yahweh here. A prudent man, punished life, Yahweh, fear, by from the far his soul. No, stays far from soul, far he guards his soul. My fear, humility of them by far his soul guards. He who guards the perverse in the way. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
I like the I don't like the long life. It doesn't seem to fit to me. Take a pen and mark that off.
I'll remember it. I'll remember it.
Strike that line, Sharon. My gosh. All right, here we go.
Life.
I think long life, it could be like a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, when you are truly loved by God and you know it, and you're rich in the glory of the Lord, and you feel that you are truly blessed by the companionship of your Savior, um, a long life might be 3 days. And
Mhm.
three days of knowing that and realizing that is wonderful. Better than a lifetime of not knowing it.
Yeah.
So the long life I would think is a subset of Yahweh.
Well, I guess just saying life means it's good.
Yeah. I think it's life.
Good
Like
a good
the per-
existence.
yeah, the person who knows Yahweh has life, has wealth, has what's this, riches and honor.
Um,
So it's equating knowing God with these things. But as we said, these things are not like I've got $1 million. These things are riches in Yahweh, honor in Yahweh, life in Yahweh.
mhm.
Yep. All right. Should we move on? 11 through 16, because it changes after that. Sue?
Yeah, I'll read.
Okay.
The Lord loves the pure of heart. The man of winning speech has the king for his friend. The eyes of the Lord safeguard knowledge, but he defeats the projects of the faithless. The sluggard says, a lion is outside in the streets. I might be slain. The mouth of the adulteress is a deep pit. He with whom the Lord is angry will fall into it. Folly is close to the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from him. He who oppresses the poor to enrich himself will yield up his gains to the rich as sheer loss.
Okay. I think this is a section with some pretty harsh things to say.
Like
He who
the
loves,
rod,
like the what?
the rod part.
Oh yeah, well, all of them. I mean, he who loves the pure heart and whose speech is gracious will have a king for his friend. So that's the good part. But then the rest of it, the eyes of the Lord watch over the knowledge, but he frustrates. I have mine frustrates the words of the unfaithful. And then this thing about the sluggard. There's a lion outside, or I'll be murdered if I go in the streets. So this is excuses. It's saying stupid things to get, not go to work or not be responsible or not help out. I had a person I was working, and and the person came over and they were with me, and I said, "Here, can you hold this for me?" And they said, "No." I said, "What? I can't. I need you to hold this because I have to mark this, and I can't hold out here and mark in here at the same time." And he said, "No, I work alone. I can't work with anybody. So I can't do it. I can't break my tradition of working alone. I'm like, well, I bet you really don't work at all, do you? Because yeah, that's the most the silliest thing I ever heard. I mean, what kind of a silliness is that? I work alone. I can't hold this for you for 30 seconds. Yeah, so this sounds really ridiculous. There's a lion outside, or I'll be murdered if I go in the street. But all excuses, yep, moms and dads and elder people that we are, all excuses sound ridiculous when you know it's an excuse, right? It doesn't matter. Like if somebody gives you an excuse, you know it's an excuse. Sometimes you may have said to your kids or somebody in your family where you feel like you could be honest with it when they said, "Oh, my leg hurts," and you probably came back and said, "Oh yeah, yeah, you know, you have a broken bow, yeah, your leg's just shattered, isn't it? It's just you can't even walk, can you?" Because it's a stupid, ridiculous excuse not to go and do it. The mouth of the adulteress is a deep pit. He who is under the Lord's wrath will fall into it. What about that one?
Mm.
Under the Lord's wrath. Is that you think that means that God is making them fall into it? What's yours say, Sharon? You have a different translation.
The mouth of an immoral woman is a dangerous trap. Those who
Mhm.
make the Lord angry will fall into it.
Hmm. What about yours, Sue?
So the mouth of the adulteress is a deep pit. He with whom the Lord is angry will fall into it.
How about you, Gail?
The mouth of an immoral woman is a deep pit. He who is abhorred of the Lord will fall there.
Abhorred?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Abhorred.
a great word.
What is it?
Yeah. He who is abhorred of the Lord.
Abhorred.
Wow. Abhorred of the Lord.
Well, at least these are all saying the same thing.
Yeah, but I like abhorred of the Lord better because it it can go both ways, can it?
Hmm.
Like if I hate God, then I do what I want. If I don't know God, I do what I want. And if you bring up God, I don't want to hear it. And I will just, go to the mat on it. So I abhor the Lord. It's me. God doesn't abhor me. God loves me.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that makes me the maddest is that you keep telling me that I'm loved and I don't feel loved. And so there must not be a God. And if there is, he's a tyrant. It's perfectly logical, right? He's basing everything on how I feel. Ridiculous thing. For Christians, we all know better than that, right? Every bumbling somebody feels something. Anybody can feel something. We can feel anything. That our feelings are completely, mostly, almost totally independent, or can be independent of what is real and good and true. And we prove that all the time. People get into trouble and they get into relationships and they get all kinds of stuff because they want it, they like it, it's great, and they'll learn too late how bad it is and how hurt they become by all of it. So that logic it doesn't make sense if you've learned anything. If you haven't learned anything, then it's perfect sense. So I abhor the Lord. So I'm going to fall into that trap with the woman because I'm not paying attention to God. I'm going the other way. Right? Now I could even turn this around and say, mine says, he who is under the Lord's wrath will fall into it. So does that mean God's making me fall into it? Sounds like that. That's why I like the word abhors better. But let's say it does. Okay, let's take that. He who is under the Lord's wrath will fall into it. So what's the Lord's wrath? The Lord's wrath is going to be punishment. I'm going to get punished. The punishment's just. I'm heaping the punishment on myself. I'm doing the thing that God doesn't like, and I'm going to suffer the consequences. That's just fair, right? But my process in this is running from God's in my own way. I'm running from God's wrath. You tell me that I'm going to be punished. I was talking to a guy years ago who said, Parson, you think I'm going to be punished? Well, now's the best time. So now's the time to have fun. So that's what I want to do. So his reason for going into the immoral relationship, for instance, is because he knows of God's wrath. Not because God's punishing him in the moment. That's a future thing. God's not getting people into automobile accidents on the freeway because they beat their kids. God's not doing that. That God's wrath is seen later on in their life, and it's irrevocable. But so is God's forgiveness and God's peace. If they accept it, then they're saved. Something that we don't like because it's not fair.
So what I'm seeing here too is it says, he with whom God is angry will fall into it. It doesn't say God will push him into it or shove him into it or put him into it. He falls into it. So the mouth of the adulteress is a deep pit. The adulteress is anything that takes a person away from God. It's the adultery and the break of the covenant with God that, you go after what is not of God. And
Yes.
so if the person is not on the path, the straight path that is well made, they could fall into a pit because they're wandering off the side of the path. And over there in the weeds and the, wilderness, there are cliffs and pits and whatever. So, but it's interesting to me too that the word pit is used because the ultimate Hades or hell is known as the pit. It's the pit that people don't come back from. So that there's a lot actually of weight in that one sentence or two sentences.
Yep. I'm going to circle that, Sue. Thank you. Good catch. Well done. All right. Want to keep going? We can let's take 17 through you want to take it in one big lump? We've got 5 minutes. Just go 17 to the end. And then we'll see if we can't pull it all through. Who would like to read?
I'll go.
You go.
Pay attention and listen to the sayings of the wise. Apply your heart to what I teach, for it is pleasing when you keep them in your heart and have all of them ready on your lips, so that your trust may be in the Lord. I teach you today, even you. Have I not written 30 sayings for you, sayings of counsel and knowledge, teaching you true and reliable words, so that you can give sound answers to him who sent you. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case and will plunder those who plunder them. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered, for you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared. Do not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. Do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your forefathers. Do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. He will not serve before obscure men.
Cool. That was a lot. But those are, again, now we're in the positive column, right? So this is a person, I like the way this is starting off saying, I've done this for you. I'm doing this. So you need to do this back. This 17, 18, 19, I like the movement. Pay attention and listen. And then this word that comes back again, apply. Apply your heart to what I teach. And when you say apply, and then it's so that is the one that's down at 19. Why should I apply? So that. Right? This is 17. Pay attention. Apply your heart. So that in 19. So that your trust may be in the Lord. If you listen to what I say and you apply your heart, you will find God. And then mine says, I don't know what yours says, Sharon. What's the second half of 19?
The second half?
Yeah.
Well, first part says, I am teaching you today. Yes, you. So you will trust in the Lord.
Yeah. So yours is backwards from ours, right? From mine, right? Mine starts off with, so that you may trust in the Lord. I teach you today, even you. Even you.
Yeah. It says, yes, you.
Even you.
Even you.
It's separated.
Even you get to be taught.
It's like, yes, you.
I like that too, because that's the wise man who's reminding the person that he's teaching that the gift of wisdom is even for the person who isn't really listening. Even you who aren't paying attention, I'm teaching you. Even you.
I mean, really, that's exactly the way it's written. Like, if you're thinking it's not you, you're wrong. Yes, it's you.
Even you. Yep. And then it goes on. Mine says, have I not written 30 sayings for you, saying of counsel and knowledge, teaching you true and reliable words so that you can give sound answers to him who sent you? It's almost like a argument, almost like I've done this for you. What are you doing?
It is, yeah.
And then he goes back into it. Don't exploit the poor, and do not make friends with hot-tempered people. Do not be a man who strikes. Do not move an ancient boundary. Do you see the man skilled in his work? So the last one is the computation for all those do nots. If you don't do that, see, you're not the man. You're not the unskilled guy. You're the skilled guy. And he says, okay, the skilled guy will serve before kings. So if you have wisdom, you're the skilled man. You see the skilled man, they serve before the king. So you become a wise person, you will serve before the king. Not before obscure men. Very upbuilding, very encouraging. We take
And the
this.
king is the Lord.
Yeah.
So if you're a wise man, it's not just talking about people on earth who
Mhm.
who are skilled and find their way, in higher places, but ultimately serving the Lord.
In 28, do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your forefathers. Do you think it could mean maybe do not move or change a tradition?
Are God's laws?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
But also in the Old Testament, there are so many times that talk about when before the whole Israel people went to Egypt, that God appeared to either Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob in the wilderness, and then they set up stones. They
Yes.
built up
An altar.
an altar and it was just a pile of stones, right? And then it became a place of worship for people. So those places of worship are, don't take them down, don't change those boundary stones and make that, if God gave them that land, or God gave them that space, or God appeared in that place,
Yep.
then honor that.
Yep. I think this is another one of that you can see both and.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a rule for living. Don't cheat your neighbor or this other person. But it also is what Jay, I think that's where my mind went to it right away as well. This is the word that's given to you is the word was given to your great grandparents, the ones that God came to. And the word's been consistent and unchanging. So don't go change it. Don't move the boundary stakes, because that's not in your purview.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the practical part, moving the boundary stakes is cheating, and it doesn't produce anything good. So if you take the regular application, the physical application, and then lay it over, perhaps he's talking about God. He's saying there's no good that's going to come out of this. It's not. I think about this whenever I think about this, I think of a man who was, I think I've told you this before, is dubbed King Carter, and he's here in Virginia. And the wild thing is that this guy was the richest man in Virginia, had the most power of anybody in Virginia, and nobody knows who he is. He lived on the Northern Neck, and he knew all the governors, and he went to all the balls, and he hobnobbed with all the rich people, and he had hundreds of thousands of acres all over the state of Virginia. And he moved boundary lines all the time. That's how he got his land. Yeah.
Hmm.
He would
Sounds
wait.
familiar.
You know, when the world governor, when the world governor was sent to any of the colonies, to Virginia, for instance, the king would say, "Oh, you know, because they didn't want to go. These guys didn't want to be the governor of Virginia. They didn't want to come here, the backwoods, you know, dirt ball places like that." But the king said, "Well, I'm gonna give you 10,000 acres. It's my land. So right there in Virginia, I'm gonna give you 10,000 acres." Well, Carter would buddy up to him right away, and they didn't want that land, but they still had it. So Carter would find out where that land was, and then he would go out and he'd move the boundary stakes. He would move because he knew the governor was never going to go out there and look at his land. So he acquired hundreds of thousands of acres by just moving the boundary stakes. Now, I think of it as a wild thing because he did all this cheating to be a big shot, cheating to be a man who was, you know, the man among men. And what's happened in history? Nobody knows him. You know, he made his fortune by stealing the land from the royal governor. And after his fortune is made, he's completely obscure in history. Totally obscure. So whenever I hear about moving boundary stakes, I always think of King Carter. Look him up. It's a nickname. King Carter was a nickname, and he was called the king because he had so much land and was always hanging out with the governors and the royal people. Yeah.
This wasn't Carter's Grove.
No.
Okay.
No, he lived on the northern. In fact, if you ever go to the northern neck and go to Weems and you go to Christ Church,
Mhm.
not Christ Church, Virginia, but across the northern neck, and you go in Christ Church, it is the most intact colonial church in the country, bar none. It has the original 1700s pews that wood was put in by Carter's family. That is not a church. That church was his private chapel, his private prayer place. He had that built for him and his family because his house was right there. So when you go there and you look at this, like, this is someone's private chapel, it's phenomenal. Who would have the kind of money and the ability to build in the colonial times, to build a building like that for their private chapel, their family chapel? It's amazing.
Just taking
Yeah.
what he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just to put cherry on top of it, when you have a chapel, what do you have to have?
You need a priest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he would commission a priest to come over from England and be his family's chaplain. That's what he did. He didn't have a big congregation. He served the Carters. And that was that little chapel, not a little chapel. That church was his church for the Carters.
Mel Gibson has one too.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's rich too, so he can have one. All right, guys, this was great as it always is. I pray that you have a wonderful night. Stay out of the heat. Oh my gosh, it was hot today. So that's all good. Have a wonderful night. Sleep
If
well.
you see this man over there, if you see this man over at church pushing a lawnmower up the hill,
Oh,
100
Jay.
degrees, tell him to go home.
No.
Hey, Jay, wait a second. I'm going to stop this. Bye, recording people. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.